I was worried for a minute.
Hello.
But you know what? I thought you're like Greek, Egyptian, like Brazilian, can get a couple of minutes late. So I was fine.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. My clock says 11 o'clock straight up, and that's when I tuned in, not a couple of minutes late.
Perfect. For me means 10 minutes later.
Okay,
I love
Okay.
I love the background.
No.
thank
I
you.
like it.
Yeah, we got the streets of Havana here.
That's
I
beautiful.
know. Yeah, that's so fantastic. Anyway, Diana, thank you so much for doing this. Can't wait. Should we start the webinar you started?
Yeah, we should
Diana,
start.
we have lots of people coming and slowly they will percolate in. I think what I will do is start my presentation that is quick, just to introduce what we're doing, and then we can start the conversation. And I hope, Diana, you bought coffee. I have coffee.
But let me ask your format real quickly before. So
Yes.
you're gonna start, tell what we're doing, and then am you and I just in a dialogue the whole time?
Yes, the whole
Okay.
time. And then we
Because
also,
I thought I don't care. I'm here to do whatever you want, but I thought you wanted to make a solo presentation for a while. No?
no, yes, I think would be great too. So what I thought is me and you, but the beginning, if you can tell about your trajectory, your presentation, you put the background, and then I will start asking you questions later.
Okay. Okay.
Sounds good?
Yeah,
Okay.
and feel free, but be very just, if I'm in the middle of something, just say, hey, that leads me to, go ahead and interrupt me and ask something. Go ahead.
Dan, are you ready for presentation science, like people asking pointed questions?
I hope so. I hope so.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And okay, this is a SHIELD webinar. And I am the director of SHIELD. John Richardson out of MIT is a project manager. And I like to start, and this is one thing we do as part of the center, those webinars. And I like to first, so thankful for Diana and Bonnie for answering my crazy email, asking you guys have to be here, or Diana has to tell her story. And I will talk later on why I thought it would be so relevant for us scientists to hear from Diana. Okay, for people that don't know, I always like to introduce what is SHIELD about. And I like to start by saying, close your eyes, look up in the sky. And when you look at those, twinkly stars, you don't realize that they're not naked structures, but they're surrounded by a cloth. So that cloth we call astrosphere, and it's made by the wind that emanate from stars. That's another wild concept, that every star drive a wind, and as they move through the medium, that winds get deflected, forming this shield around them. It's very hard to see. Only very massive stars, we can see them. Those are real pictures from NASA showing that. But usually winds are very, very rarefied, so it's very hard to see those cloths. And what we're doing SHIELD is to study our own bubble called the heliosphere. And I'm going to play this cute movie we produced that show Earth and all the planets immersed in our own bubble, the heliosphere, that here we're showing on one of the representation we think that it's look like a croissant-like shape. And the point of this movie that all the planets are way within this cloth. So we are interested of understanding the properties of this cloth, and also understanding how it's related to why we have life on Earth and why other planets will have life on their surfaces. So SHIELD stand for this long acronym. You can blame my students for coming up with this name. I'm not even going to repeat that. But the other thing we're very interested is not just understanding it, and we call it, we want to do a digital twin, meaning we want to understand everything about this cloth. We also want to have a very diverse community. And this speaks a lot from what me and Diana are going to talk. It's part of my own trajectory coming up. So it's very close to my own heart that for you to make discoveries, you need to bring diverse voices to the table. So here is just, again, one of the figures showing the complexity of trying to understand this huge structure that the heliosphere. It has microphysics structures, macroscopic physics. There's lots of observations. So we are all around the table, more than 40 scientists with different institutions trying to understand that. And you can check our website if you want to know more about it. And like I said, we really want to bring, and not just say we are bringing diversity, but we want it to be integrally connected to the science we do. So we actually, like spies, we embed all our early careers in all the science arms and have them lead the key science finding. So actively engineering places where you can hear diverse voices. The SHIELD webinar is part of the stuff we do. You can see here there is many different things we do within SHIELD. One of the things that was very close to my heart back in COVID, I asked my students at the time, and they started and we're continuing. We call it, you can't be what you can see. And I just ask them, just turn on your video, tell me the story where you come from, what were your mentors, what were your challenges, and 5 minutes. And the stories are like incredible. So if you want to go to our website and check, you hear like, I'm the first student from an immigrant parents back in China. It's just incredible, touchy stories. So it's just also brought very close to my heart that we need to hear more stories of the challenges, how you overcome them, how you come to the table, right? So the upcoming events we have in November 15, Dara Norman talking about my life as an astronomer. We have coffee chats where, early careers come, like the senior people are not invited. This is a safe space for you to just chat and talk about your challenges. And you can find us on the web. So before I turn the table to Diana to tell her story, those are just pictures I gather of the web quickly. It's an incredible story. I saw the movie Nyad, and then I went and saw all the documentaries about Diana, and I was like, she has to come and tell her story. It's incredible. And immediately I could see the connections with what we do in space physics. We can talk more about it, make those connections, but there is so many themes that she touches and her story touches that are very close to us. And we will come back to it. What the story that Diana is going to tell us has to do with, for example, Voyager, that is being 40 years out there. And we just now are able to bring Voyager back into life. 40 years, imagine the persistence, the passion to get this spacecraft back and still talk to us. Okay, Diana, I'm going to stop yakking and let you take the font thing and tell your story.
Not at all, Merav. I could listen to you all day. I will tell you, I'm almost embarrassed to tell you and your colleagues that since I've been a teenager, I'm turning 75 this week. What? How did that happen? So I'm supposed to have a lot of wisdom, but I will tell you that the one little area of, kind of believe me, lay study since I've been a kid has been space. I bow down to you astronomers. When I read about the helioscope, et cetera, I'm just like, wow. In every Stephen Hawking book I ever read, and I love how he said, with all due respect to his memory, in the preface of every one of his book, he said, this book is not for my colleagues. This is not a deep dive physics book. This book is for you, those of you who have the wonder of the universe. And I want to call him, after reading the first chapter of every book, saying, you lied. This is Richard Feynman's experiments of that little, molecule going through this is not for us, the lay, but I tried to read Stephen Hawking, but honestly, it was more Carl Sagan. That was the poet philosopher.
Carl Sagan. Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, I'm just rereading Cosmos now, but I would tell you that the night before I would go out, I tried that Cuba swim 5 times. It's an epic ocean out there with a lot of epic, catastrophic problems out there.
Yes, yeah.
And I would read a little bit of Carl Sagan's Cosmos about the pale blue speck dot.
Yeah,
and
dot.
just as you astronomers, find your sense of wonder looking from outer space down at our home planet Earth, I was out immersed in the blue jewel of this planet. And even though it's a very grueling sport, there's a lot of pain and discomfort to it, there's also awe. So I would be out there in the middle of the Gulf Stream. You can literally see 2 billion stars on a clear summer night. And I'd be with Carl Sagan and the pale blue dot and the things that you talk about, even though they're pretty complex for me to understand.
Yeah, I want to come back to it because it's exactly what, when I saw it, I was like, yes, I could totally see it. Yeah.
Yeah. But, sort of on more the human end, I would say that, look, I don't want to be a person who sits around and looks back. That swim, as historic as it was, and a big movie was made of it this year, which
Right.
I'm honored about. That swim was 11 years ago now. It was Labor Day 11 years ago. So I want to move onward. Even at 75, I've got a lot of energy, vitality. I've got dreams, big dreams. I believe in dreaming big. I believe in the courage to fail. Discover who you are by setting the bar high, high, high. And I don't need to tell you and your colleagues this, but I do look back at that swim, just as I read, I read biographies of Nelson Mandela, people who have perseverance, people who get knocked down, and
Right.
they will not stay down. They believe in coming back up. So I look at my own story, along with many others, to say, remember, you believe, just like the ancient Greeks did, in the power of the journey, not just the destination. You may never get there, but if you continue to try to get to wherever, if it's healing your cancer, or it's raising a disabled child, or it's writing that novel you said you were always going to write, but you haven't done it yet. So whatever it is, I believe in dreaming big, thinking enough of myself that I'm going to have the audacity to chase something very, very big. And even if I don't get there, that journey is going to be full of discovery. So that's, honestly, that swim was more than just an athletic event, set a new record. It had to do with my internal way of philosophy of living a life. So I'm lucky in all that I discovered in it, and all that it's given to my life still. When I was a kid, and I didn't know yet as a teenager that my talent was going to be swimming over the curvature of the earth with a steel trap mind. So as a sprinter, my chances of making the Olympic team got slimmer and slimmer as those Olympic trials came. And a friend came to me the night of my potentially last race as a sprinter. I was either going to those Olympic trials or was going on to the end of my life. And she said, I'll tell you what, Diana, okay, your chances are slim. Why don't you get up there tonight? Why don't you blast off the blocks with the shoulders that you built for 8 years, every day, 6 to 8 hours a day, even as a kid? Why don't you dig down with the heart that drove you to do 1,000 sit-ups every night, never 999? And when you get to the end of this race, I want you to close your eyes, close your fists, and say, and mean it, I couldn't have done it a fingernail faster. Well, she said, you may not make it, but you do it that way, you can't give any more to it, you'll never have regrets. And that's what the Cuba swim became to me also. It wasn't another record in the record book for me. It was digging down to every fiber of my potential. And now to this day, I'm 75. I think I'll probably live another good 25 years to 100. But I want, Merav, the last day, the last breath I take, I want to be able to say, oh, it went by too fast. I wish I had more time. I want to meet more people, help more people, have more experiences. But I'm going to say, Merav, at least every day of my life, I did it. So I couldn't do it a fingernail better. And that's what that sport taught me, even for outside of swimming, you know?
Oh, I love it. I so love it. Remind me, my mom had this, I think she in May, and she said, I want to jump into the grave. Like I am, she's like so full of energy. But yeah. I think this passion, I want to come back to it too, Diana, I didn't want to interrupt you. It just, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think this passion is so critical. It's so critical. Like I'm just making parallels. When I started physics, I didn't really want to do physics, and I kept looking for what is going to arrest me. Give that passion that you wake up and you're like, I can't wait to do it. It's bigger than you. It's something that it's good that it's bigger than you, right? I wanted to ask you a question already, and then you can go and tell more about your trajectory. I hope people watch the movie and see the documentary, several TED talks that Diana, and you might summarize it again. But 5 attempts to make that crossing to Cuba. It's like what a story, and all the things that you have to face, jellyfish, currents not going the right direction, everything, the exhaustion, everything. And I kept thinking while I was watching it, that take a special person, and I want to ask you about it, that you go back to the ring, and just to back to the boxing ring after you get knocked out, and to draw a parallel, to put your background, what I'm thinking. When I started in space physics, there was no many women, no foreigners. There was so the cards was stacked so against me. And in a Voyager team, I was younger by generations. So I felt so alienated. And the fact that I was women, I came out late, everything was so different that I was trying to find myself. And every time somebody will knock me out or knock me down, I will call, I think, my Bonnie. I will call my sister or my dad, and they will say, go back in. It just was like 5 minutes. I would call my sister and said, I will not say anything. I would just, she knows what I'm going to say. She said, you can do it. Go back in. And it was like 2 minutes. And I went back. So I wanted to talk to you about that, about what made you through these 5 attempts, or even before that, tell you, go back.
I think that, and I bet you agree with me here, you can't have an inauthentic goal. If something has to be, you used the word passion a minute ago, something that big, pursuing a career like yours, at such a high level of intellect and education and knowledge of something so, deeply challenging as outer space and the physics of space, you have to have a passion to drive you. If it was just like, oh, I want to make some money, oh, I want a title in front of my name, it's never going to drive you. It's going to be too difficult. But like your sister and your father have known about you, that your curiosity and your intellectual ability has been at such a high level that if you have a setback, if just this paper didn't work out, or this exam didn't work out, or this project didn't come to fruition the way you want, they know about you, and you know about yourself, that your abilities and your passion are so authentic that you're going to get there. Yes, tried this swim over 35 years, but the truth is, way earlier than that, way before my 20s, when I was an open water swimmer, I was 9 years old, living on the coast of Florida near Miami, Fort Lauderdale, when the Cuban Revolution broke. And literally, with Fidel Castro riding into Havana that night, those Cuban people had 24 hours if they wanted to leave, but they're not going to be able to take their house or anything but maybe the cash from the bank and the clothes on their back. They had to leave in 24 hours. And our town was in one night flooded with thousands of Cubans. And we started being friends and understanding them. And all of a sudden, we knew about Cuba. Well, all of a sudden, that island right off our shore became a fixation for me. And my mother, I was 9 years old. I was a little competitive pool swimmer. And she said to me, she was French. She looked across that horizon. I said, "Where is it, Mom? I know Cuba is out there. I can't see it. Where is it?" She said, "Okay, it is right there. It's just across the horizon, just right here. As a matter of fact, it's so close. You little champion swimmer, you could almost swim there." At age 9, that was a passion, like maybe for you, the sun and the solar winds, became something that filled your imagination and you wanted to become the world's expert about it. Well, I wanted to be the only one, the first one who could swim all the way. And it was always not just about the proof of an athlete doing something, an expedition, and lots of science involved in that expedition.
Yeah.
But it was also, it was a deep personal connection between our countries. I love the Cuban people. You can see in my home, there's a Cuban street right here painted in a mural.
I love it.
I want to connect the Cuban people again with America. And Obama is a president I very much admire, Barack Obama. He had me in the White House after the swim, and he said, "Diana, you know what you did? You just made a gesture. You left that shore, and very shortly after, just 2 days later, you touched that shore. You showed us that our two countries can come back together." So that was a part of it too, that was deep. But I think what you're asking is, if your passion is authentic for whatever it is you want to do, then getting knocked down, it's not going to be that hard to get back up, because the belief is so deep inside of you.
Right, and that arc, I think I was going to ask you, but I think you already answered. I think you have the arc. A lot of people go one objective to the next, and they don't see that arc. You need to get to Cuba. You need to do that. So, like you said, find a way how to. Yeah. I have another question, and I also want, in some point, to open. I'm sure we'll have so many questions on mentors. I know my mentors. Like when mentors, in the sense, people that you admire that help you say, "Oh, I can be like that person." And for me, it was not scientists. We're all guys. Nobody really looked like me. So yeah, Feynman, I really liked, I agree with you, Carl Sagan. I watched Cosmos as a little girl. Oh my God, he was a poet. But I love art. So for me, it was Maria Callas, was like those artists that I felt were at the edge of the impossible. Or they will fall and break their face, or they will do something amazing. So seeing those big artists like Maria Callas, I was like, I want to do something big. So I was wondering for you, I don't know, you're saying, I'm going to be the first to do that. Did you look up for another person?
It's funny, people always ask, who are your heroes, who are your mentors? And, there are all kinds of people I could write down. I just mentioned Barack Obama, but I could say Michelle Obama also. There are all kinds of people. I mentioned Nelson Mandela.
No, but I'm thinking when you're growing up, when you were trying to chart your path.
I know, but I'm trying to say, honestly, it was never for me athletes. I have looked at and, admired many different athletes, but, when I read the stories of Georges Sand, so here I was.
Georges Sand, yeah.
I was a teenager and I'm reading about this French woman, who 2 centuries before used to wear men's suits so that she could walk as a flaneur. She could walk around Paris
Yeah, yeah.
and be with the French intelligentsia and write and study and go to the art salons. And I thought that just struck me with a huge imagination. I thought, I want to do that. I want to go to Paris and wear men's suits and be part of the talking about the art scene and the writing scene. And, you know, I want to do that. So I think there were lots of things outside of sports that sort of excited me to be a part of. I mean, look at the Paris Olympics just now. Frankly, I even though Celine Dion has been through tremendous physical hardship, you know, literally disease and then losing her husband, all kinds of things. But she's never been my favorite singer. And
Yeah,
she
neither
does
really.
speak French with a Quebecois accent, which is just wrong. But she sang Edith Piaf. She made Edith Piaf come back to Paris with a Parisian accent, and she sang it with all her heart. I mean, I was just sobbing sitting here in front of my television watching. So I think any artist or performer or scientist who brings everything they are, you know, to something, you read about the cancer pathologists who just say, I don't care, for the rest of my life, I'm studying ovarian cancer. I want to understand what immune cells we can teach to go attack that cancer. I don't want to tell my patients anymore they're going to have to go through radiation and chemotherapy. I want to get rid of that. And that person may go their whole life chasing that one cancer cell. And that's inspiring, you know?
Yeah, I completely, I agree. I have other questions. Stanley, do you want to have people ask already questions, or I will go down my other innumerous questions for Diana?
Let's keep going through questions. And then if you do have questions, we just raise your hand and we can unmute you and you can speak directly to her.
Yes. Okay, so I have two different questions for you. One was about funding your, we in NASA, in space physics, we always struggle funding, and a lot of space scientists are different than astronomers. Astronomy happen a lot in universities. Space science is a lot of labs, NASA labs. So the personal funding to do research is increased when you do this kind of format. And there is always a discussion. I was part of what we call decadal survey. You're thinking what the community will be in the next 10 years. And there's always this discussion between funding small ideas or funding the impossible dreams. The one that, we're trying to fund a new Voyager. Voyager was a feat of dreamers in the 70s, and let's do two of them. And now to have another Voyager is $1 billion. It's what we call flagship mission. And then you have to do that, dream the impossible. You can't just look at your budget right now. You have to say, this is where humanity should go. We should leave our bubble. So this is always this struggle. So I rewatched yesterday your movie again, and I saw you your Annette Bening being you calling all the funders, and I haven't seen you talk about it in your interviews, and it just reminded me when you have this impossible dream, and here you are 60. And that is, again, there's something that is not what people expect, right? This athlete 30, I can do it. No, I am here. I'm coming out from retirement. I'm going to do something possible. What was to raise funds to do that?
I think that, fundraising gets to be complicated because you have to be, sort of aware of who's got that kind of discretionary money and who's going to drink the Kool-Aid that you're pouring. So I think that always for me, I've been lucky, and that is that let's just say I'm not just an athlete, but I'm someone who can articulate my passion as well. If I may be so bold to say so. So if I walk into a meeting, to try to get the funding, for the boats and the, all the expenses it takes for the entire crew. And you're waiting around for months and months. So that expedition crew, they don't get paid salaries, but they need to be taken care of. You got 40 people. So it's certainly not like funding Voyager to go into outer space. But by the way, my boat, my epicenter boat was
Saw
called
that. I saw that.
Voyager. So I'm very fond of the name as well. But I think what for me has been easy in fundraising is that I just speak from my gut, and when I leave a meeting, it seems to me, people have told me to say, whatever Kool-Aid she's drinking, I want it. I want to drink it myself, and I want to sell it to my people because it's inspiring. Everybody in the world, when she touches that other shore, is going to know that you're never too old to chase your dreams. She just proved it. She just proved that you don't give up. You do get knocked down. I don't care if you're chasing big goals, you're not going to make it the first time out. You get knocked down, and everybody in the world knows that's what the human experience is. We don't just get to be 90 and say, the whole thing, it was just a bowl full of cherries. No, we suffer heartache, we suffer tragedy, we suffered setbacks. And if you witness someone, I don't have to say to people, just don't give up. I embody that. I am an authentic carrier of that message. So people, corporations who want that message behind their product or their service or their people, it's easy for them to connect. So I've always been decent at fundraising for things I'm authentically passionate about.
Fantastic. I've another 2 questions, and then I'm going to open for I see Heather raise her hand. So another question, that's something I know I struggle when I am, I don't know, thinking something big is, and I saw you spoke a little bit about it. The movie spoke a little more about, so I wanted to hear your voice about fear. That moment, when you're doing something big or anything big, you're dreaming, there is a moment that you have to do a mind trick and not to be fearful and paralyzed by the fear. And I was wondering if when you're swimming 3 days, if there is a moment that you are like, I don't know, some haunting stuff come, or you are like, I'm afraid. That is,
You know what, Merav, for me, fear, once I've decided to do something, the fear is on the other side of the equation. It's if I haven't prepared enough, if I haven't unturned every stone possible, because I can only get my body and my mind ready to do something that's going to be painful, that's going to be long, that maybe is going to be impossible. But when I'm dealing with the most potent venom of any animal on planet Earth, the box jellyfish, that emits a venom that will take your central nervous system down, paralyzes your spinal cord. It is stupid of me not to reach out to the world's leading expert, Dr. Angel Yanagihara from University of Hawaii, to understand that animal. When does it come up to the surface? How can we possibly get through them, etc.? So if I don't come to the start and say to my team, Mother Nature may be out there on steroids today. It was before, that's what hit us the last time, whether it was the storms or the jellyfish or whatever it was. But I cannot show up with any sense of valor and say to my team, well, I wished I had studied this a little more. I wish I had, on 14-hour swims, I hadn't stopped at 13 hours and 58 minutes, because that gives you a pattern of making concessions. Oh, well,
Yeah.
Isn't that enough? Isn't 13:58 enough? Well, for me and for Bonnie, it wasn't. It had to be 14 hours if that's what we're setting out to do. So I guess my fear wasn't being hurt or not making it. I was prepared for all that. My fear would be if I didn't do enough to get ready. So I want to get to the start line saying there is nothing more I could have done. And now if we don't make it, it's not going to be because of me. So now I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid of the box jellyfish. I'm not afraid of failing. I'm not afraid of sharks swimming below me. What I was afraid of was not doing enough, not knowing enough. Knowledge is power, And so I went to the start all 5 times feeling There was no stone unturned. Now I'm not afraid of anything.
That is great. It's a little bit different. Like I put myself in situations and then I'm not as prepared as you're saying, or maybe I am, but I'm suddenly, oh my God, and that, and it's work out. I master it. I have one last question, then I want to open. That is, I'm going back on diversity issues. Somebody was asking me, we came up with this idea of heliosphere being a cosun, and somebody was telling me, oh, it's of course you came up with this idea because you brought different views. You like, you grow up with different parents, you're an immigrant or where. And I think also a lot, even coming out, like I looked from a different perspective, and that was my advantage. I was not on the same path, so I could look on the side and think, and see things in a different view. You think your parents being immigrant, or I don't know, coming out or not, but I don't know, it gave you a different perspective, or no?
Yeah. I think in general, all of us, I try to be around young people,
Yeah.
I hear them. So many young people come to me and say, I have skills, I'm smart, I have discipline, I'm willing to put, but I don't know what my passion is, and I say to them often is that old Goethe quote of just go out, there's boldness in beginnings. You may not know your path. Unlike you, like you said, physics wasn't your first
Right.
step. It wasn't your first dream. But if you just don't sit around,
Right. Yeah.
you're never going to get ahead in your personal life, in your professional life, just sitting around, hoping that a white knight rides through and taps you on the shoulder. You got to go out. So maybe you don't want to be a carpenter, but right now there's a free carpentry class right down the street. Maybe you'll find it interesting. You go and you start, and 6 months later, you decide, I don't want to be a carpenter, but there was another guy in the class who's studying immunology. And that interests me. And all of a sudden,
Yeah.
I'm going to get my degree in immunology because I went and I didn't sit around and I tried that carpentry.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I just realized I have to turn it to Heather because she has to leave early. I have another question, but I'm going to stop. Heather, your turn. Heather is one of great scientists of solar wind. Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah. My name is Heather Elliott. I am one of the SHIELD team members. And so my question is, do you think inspiration typically comes from a variety of sources when striving to reach a big goal? And I have a reason for asking that. It's just, because I like music and dancing, but my work is space science and studying the solar wind. So I meet a lot of musicians by going to shows and dancing. And the people who ask me the most about my work happen to be musicians. So they seem to be inspired by space, but I'm inspired by music. And so I was just wondering if you think about this, what you think about cross-fertilization.
Yeah, cross-fertilization. Heather, by the way, congratulations on all the work you do. I think, I will go even farther for me than music also moves me very much. And now, Merav has already said the same for herself. I saw Yo-Yo Ma recently. He makes the cello cry. He makes the cello weep. So someone who at age 4, not only had that intrinsic natural talent, but he had a long-term vision of taking that beautiful carved instrument and making it weep for us. So I think anytime you see someone who, I don't care whether it's a chef, or a scientist, but someone who's decided to really do a deep delving dive into something and become the best they can be at it. I mean, it's inspiring. I have to say, I have friends who do cook. We just got to meet Ina Garten, whom I didn't know that much, but she's one of the great chefs of America today. And all she thinks about is the derivation of French chefs from 3 centuries ago, and how the pigs found found the truffles in the ground in southern France. And so it's just, she is deeply involved in cooking and the beauty of natural ingredients that come from the ground. So I think there's as you called it, a cross-fertilization of inspiration. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay, we have another one, and I'm holding my questions. I'm being good. Romina, it's another fantastic scientist.
Hello, it's very nice to meet you, Diana. Thank you
you.
very much for being an inspiration for all of us. My name is Romina Nikukar, and I work on energetic particles in the heliosphere. I was wondering, given what you have accomplished, and your level of expertise and your accomplishment, you must have a remarkable mental resilience. Could you share how you have strengthened your mental toughness over time?
By the
I
way,
think your
folks, you can
advice.
turn on the cameras if you want. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
It's an interesting question, and I think that it goes back to the age-old argument over nature versus nurture, right? So I don't have my own children. I'm a pretty good aunt and a grantee, and I have 5 stepchildren. I've been very involved in their lives, but the people I know who have raised children and observed them since birth, they will say to me, Diana, have you met my son David here? He's 43, and his personality is exactly what it was when he was 18 months old in his playpen. He was curious. He was grabbing on. He wanted to see everything. He wanted to imitate everything. But did you meet my other son here, Tom? It doesn't mean that he's less successful. It doesn't mean that he's less interesting. He just was a passive baby, and he's passive today. Nothing bothers him. He doesn't get rankled over everything. So I think when it comes to a lot of these traits, like perseverance and and digging down and holding tight, I think a lot of it really does come from genetics. And if we knew I don't know many of my ancestors. I never knew grandparents, never knew any aunts and uncles, etc. But I have a feeling that I came from a line of people who dig in their heels and don't take no for an answer, and aren't the passive, placid types.
Okay,
It's
thank you.
interesting. Yeah, it's touching. Romina touched on a question that I wanted to follow up. That this resilience, I agree with you. I actually, Diana, I have a twin, not identical. She's also a professor, very famous, more famous than I am, and she doesn't have the same resilience. So she also worked in a very male-dominated field, and the way she deals is very different than mine. And it's interesting to see this nature versus nurture, how it plays. So my question is, I think in our field, and I think, or any field, but I think Romin is touching it, there is a lot of, I don't know, I forgot the word for it. It's abusiveness, just these little things that happen. It's like, you give a talk, and it's not. I remember the first time I gave a talk, I thought people would be, what a great theory. I want to hear more. I'm curious. But no, you're trained to basically shoot darts, to prove you're just stupid. This theory is wrong. It's like nobody's going to, hold hands and say, oh, how great. It's not a kumbaya field. It's very, very aggressive. And you're trained to, like monkeys, boxing each other. You have to box back. And I was always wondering, how can you be so creative and imaginative, and then at the same time have this armor to defend your ideas? It's contradictory. So, I watched you and the swim and this vision, and I was wondering if it's part of making something so hard possible, besides the world that tells you, hey, you're 60, 64, you cannot do it, or there's no way you can do, cross this. There were so many people that were telling you that mathematically is not good, right? I calculated, you can't do it. That you have to create your own reality. Besides what you're talking about, the genetics, what answering to Romina, you in some way, you have to go through life creating this vision that you have, but creating a bubble around you that it nothing to do with reality. Like voices can come and tell you it's not possible, but you go with your little bubble.
Yeah, I forget the famous Eleanor Roosevelt quote, but she said something akin to nobody can make you feel inferior except for yourself. So we're all human. And I think that even the most confident, successful people have an inner voice that tells them they're not good enough. They don't deserve the success they're getting. They're never going to make that next, level of success that they're seeking. And so it's not only outside forces, and for you in the world of deep science, it's been such an ingrained male territory. And as you said, it even is an environment in general that doesn't pat you on the back, immediately and a warm, fun, fuzzy kumbaya, tambourine band. It's more like, you better go back and give that some more thought, or that's never going to work, or no, 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 no. But I think it's even within ourselves. Like, people always make the mistake. Every interviewer sits down and says to me, well, you're so confident. You've always been good at everything and you're just confident about it. Well, not true. I definitely have my own little human frailty layer of runs through me that says, maybe I can't do that. Maybe I won't be good enough to do that. But once I decide, once I'm in and I've decided I'm not good on generalities, society generalities, like 75. Who's going to tell me right now that I'm not a very healthy, fit, strong, able 75-year-old? I am. And who was going to tell me at 64 that distance was too long and it was too hard and I was never going to make it? Nobody else did. Nobody. So I am human, and I've got little low self-esteem moments, but mainly I just think I cited a long time ago, as Mary Oliver said, each one of us has only one wild and precious life. You never get to do this life over again. You never get to do this day over again. And I refuse to waste any of my days. I may have some bad luck and I may see friends suffer, but I'm not going to allow myself to think that I'm not good enough to try anything I
No,
want to try.
it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful response. I think we have questions. Jane, did you had, or it was somebody else? Jane, you want to, I haven't seen Jane in so long. Hi, Jane. Wonderful astronomer. Jane, can you maybe, I don't know, if Salim, can you make that Diana can see the videos? And
Jane might be able to. Let's see.
okay, if not, Jane, you can just start asking your question.
Yeah, so I wanted to say thanks to Diana for all of the inspiration over all the years, as
You,
I think
Jane.
many other people have said. I knew Diana's name when I was in elementary school because I was a competitive swimmer and my best events were the distance events.
Oh, nice.
Great.
And so what I wanted to ask was, I think that one of the things that competitive swimmers and scientists have in common is basically perfectionism. I remember practicing to the point where I could nail every flip turn in the 1500 meters. And that's tricky because you have to come into the wall just right. Anyway, so my question is, what would you do differently if you could do it all over again?
What, my whole life or this
Yeah.
one?
Your
Be
whole life.
specific, Jane, be specific.
Your whole life.
It's I don't know if you know the French expression, si le jeune pouvait, savait, et la vieillesse pouvait. So it means if youth, only knew more, and if old age, you could only do more. So, it's just impossible for me to go back and say, well, in my teens, I would have been this person, because you have to earn that. You earn your life, you earn your evolution. So I am much happier with who I am today. My values and the way I decide to spend my time, my perspectives on this planet and my community and my own personal life, I am much in a better place at 75 than I was at 15. But how can I go back? How can I be hard on that 15-year-old and go back and say, if only If I had been this way. I suffered sexual abuse by my coach as a teenager. And believe me, today I would have thrown him up against a wall. I would have gone to tell the principal of my school. I would have told my mother. He would have wound up in jail. But how can I go back? How can I be filled with regrets that I wasn't able to do that at that time? Like in that particular traumatic case, almost all young people abused by someone they know, someone who supposedly loves them like a parent does or should. I wasn't capable. I was silenced and I was shamed. And I don't want to have been silenced and shamed, but how can I go back and change that? It's just the nature of life that you grow and you learn, and then you never let things like that happen again. So I find it a tricky and sort of a confusing question. You know, what would I have done differently? We all garner wisdom as we get older. We all wish we were who we are now earlier, but you can't get there. I'm 75 today. I bet I'll talk to you, Merav, when I'm 85, and I'll say,
Oh, please,
remember that. I'll say, remember that chat we had on that webinar? And I thought I knew a lot about life. Well, I knew nothing. At 85, I know a lot more now. So you can't.
I'm coming to California so we can
You
have
can't-
this chat.
You can't, but I'm just saying, you can't go back and live your life over again, you know?
You know, by the way, you know, I've been very close to people that went through what you went, and I admire you incredibly for opening up about it. It's fantastic. Anyway, so Lynn, if I'm saying correctly your name, I know you, but it's French. So Lynn, you want to ask your question? You have any tips for? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I'm Solène, and I'm
Solène,
French.
yes.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed you speaking some French, Diana. Very, very cool, and your energy is so
Merci,
contagious. Oh, that's so cool. So yeah, I have so many questions. One non-serious question is, what do you have for breakfast? Because I want the same thing. And also, so you know, you have this big dream and you have this charisma, this energy, and to reach a big goal like that, you need a team around you, you need support. And I think that's also one point that maybe we haven't discussed yet. In science, there is a lot of teamwork and managing to have people together to reaching a goal. And you know, sometimes you can have difference maybe of commitment, of energy, and how do you manage somehow to, like, do you have any tips for, you know, besides your obvious charisma, to manage your team so that this goal that is yours and that is in your gut is also becomes also the goal of the team?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for the question. You know, we haven't talked about team yet. And I do know in science, you know, it's never that one individual who's just a genius out on her own. I never would have stumbled up on that beach in Key West if it hadn't been for my team. Started with Bonnie, who's my, you know, head trainer and the head of the expedition, but, you know, genius, mathematical navigator. And it takes a genius to get across that current. You are swimming north at 2.2 miles an hour. The current is going due east at 6.6 miles an hour. And you cannot correct for it except by a navigator who's going to, every 15 minutes, set a little bit of a different tacking course to try to get you across that current. You know, I got to give a speech in Stockholm in 2014. Bonnie and I went, and it just so happened at the moment we were there, by happenstance, the Nobel Prize was being given out. And it just so happened, I met the man who won for biology that year. He had just proven that after 30 years of studying with teams, not just himself, he was a professor at Brandeis, that humans do not have a circadian rhythm, that we are not built into sleeping with the sun, that every cell in the body has its own rhythm. The skin, different from the liver, different from the heart, of living, dying, reproducing, etc. And he won $1 million with that prize. The Swedish government takes 40%. So let's say he's going to win $600,000. He was almost broke. But with that money, he spent all of it all the money he won for the Nobel Prize to bring all the scientists that he worked with for 30 years over to Stockholm. They weren't invited to the big Nobel Prize laureate evening, but he did a black tie evening for them with a chamber orchestra and thanked every one of them and saying, this Nobel Prize is ours. It's not just mine. So that's a big story about a Nobel Prize scientist, but I also, 2 hours from shore, exhausted. I've been swimming for 53 hours nonstop. I stopped and I had my team, my 40 people close by. I cried a little and I said, I'm going to walk up on that shore pretty soon. Somebody's going to take my picture, but don't you ever forget my team. Don't you ever forget, because I will never forget any of you. We did this together. We made history together. And that will always be true in my heart. And we just had our 10th anniversary, the whole team, and we celebrated, and they know that they were crucial in getting us across that ocean.
That is, oh my God, I got moved. You see?
Thank you so much.
This is so, what is interesting? It's not much of a question, just a reflection. Going back to Sulen, if I said correctly, your name again. It's teams in space physics are critical, because for any space mission, you have to have, phase A, a team, and phase E, and those teams get, and there is being a lot of study how teams are formed and how you build trust. And I found also looking at other team managers that there are, though, how it was done was very autocratic. This is my way, and you have to follow it. And I found running Shield that I wanted to do it differently. I wanted to do human. I wanted to have the trust that you build something together. What do you think your team, what was the core, your team that was so?
I just think, and I'll, sound kind of egocentric to say it this way, but Bonnie, if she were here, would say to you that my dream, we go back to that word authentic. It was so authentic. I wanted it so much and wanted to be smart about it. And I gave respect. Those shark divers are the most expert shark divers of the tropics. They know the behaviors of the oceanic white tips, of these dangerous sharks that 50, 60 miles offshore may not have eaten for a week. And if a low frequency vibration on the surface of a swimmer coming by, from 2 miles away, they hear with their sonar, they hear dying fish, and they are under us in a hurry, and they would think nothing of coming up and taking a leg from me. So my divers, they know their behaviors. They know how to position themselves between me and the shark. They know to touch them gently in their sensitive ampullae. So I could go on. I mentioned Angel Yanagihara, John Bartlett, all of that team. I think that the secret to our sauce was mutual respect. When I finished, and my team would tell you, if Bonnie were here today, she would tell you, when I didn't make it the 4th time, 51 hours in there, storms, rage, you can't predict the weather there very well. Storms, rage, blew us way off course. We didn't make it. 51 hours. By the time we got to shore on the dock, I gave a little speech and I named all 40 by name, all 40 people on the team, and said, John Rose, our EMT diver, look what you did. Look what you did for us. And you put your life and, ahead of, you put my life ahead of yours. I called every one of them out. And that's why it was sincere. I believed I couldn't do it without them. I admired what they put into it. And we had a circle of trust and mutual admiration. And that's why not getting paid a cent, one of them, year after year, when we wouldn't make it, they right away said, I'm coming back again. Nobody ever quit that team, ever.
Anna, that's incredible, incredible, incredible. I want to thank you so much. Well, on top of the hour, I can't believe it went so fast. Here is Sanlin, our Director of Broader Impact. You want to say something? And Mark, my right hand.
I just want to say thank you so much. I think we are so inspired. You just have done such inspiring things, and the kind of work that our community does is really difficult, and it's beautiful to see these connections. And I have to say, I'm so inspired by how you recognize, right? There's the star and then there's everyone else around. That is so much like space science, and just that
Yeah.
mutual respect is amazing. So I want to thank you. For everyone who's watching, we did put a short survey. We want to know what you thought of our wonderful webinar. Take a few minutes. In October, we're going to have 2 webinars on our resilience, really supporting our personal and professional resilience to go on the heels of this amazing talk. And then Darren Norman will be.
I know we're at the end, excuse me, Sandlin, but I didn't get to ask you, Merav, my one big question.
Please ask.
Does the universe exist unto infinity? So there's never an end to it. It's not an envelope with an edge.
We don't
Or
know.
is there an edge? You know, and
know,
how could there be?
You know, I started my career doing cosmology. So
Yeah.
I was interested in this question. We know the visible universe. So you know what light, there is a speed of it. So you can say how old the universe. And for me, it's completely jarring that basically we can talk about the universe, we call it visible, how much light can tell us, give us information. We have no idea beyond. So maybe it's like you're in the ocean and that darkness. It's just that, we don't know.
We don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know much, do we?
We don't.
We don't know much.
Send a big hug also to Bonnie. It was great
We will.
chatting with her.
I
And
will.
yeah,
Thank you.
it was just phenomenal.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I would have liked to spend the whole time asking you questions, frankly. I would have.
Oh, I'm so honored.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Take care.